We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and this is going to be another reaction video. This video is from Bob Invest, and this is talking about how it's actually not a good thing to have two incomes as opposed to one income. So let's see what this is talking about. Let's go.
Let me describe a couple to you and tell me if this sounds familiar. They're both working professionals. She's in marketing, making $62,000 a year. He's in IT, pulling in $71,000. Combined household income, $133,000.
That's good.
That puts them in the top 25% of American households. They should be crushing it. They should be building wealth, maxing out retirement accounts, taking nice vacations, feeling financially secure. Instead, they're stressed. They're living paycheck to paycheck or close to it. They've got maybe 2 months of expenses saved up, and that's being generous. When their car needed an unexpected repair last month, they had to put it on a credit card. They both work full-time, sometimes more than full-time. They're exhausted. They rarely see each other during the week, except for a few tired hours in the evening. And the craziest part? They've done everything right. They got the degrees, they got the careers, they got married, combined their finances, bought a house in a decent school district. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. So why does it feel like they're drowning? Why does a household making over 6 figures feel so financially fragile?
That's what I want to know.
If you've ever looked at your combined income and thought, we make too much money to feel this broke, this video is going to make a lot of things click into place. My name is Bobby, and I spend way too much time thinking about why two-income households are often worse off than single-income households from 50 years ago. If you're someone who's working alongside a partner, both of you grinding, and you can't figure out why it still doesn't feel like enough, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here's the thing. We've been sold this story that two incomes are better than one. It seems mathematically obvious, right? If one person making $50,000 can support a family, then two people making $50,000 each should be able to support that same family and have an extra $50,000 left over for savings, investments, and building wealth. That's just basic addition. Except that's not what happened. What actually happened is one of the biggest financial bait and switches in modern American history, and almost nobody talks about it. The term for this phenomenon is the two-income trap, and it was coined by Elizabeth Warren, yes, that Elizabeth Warren, back in 2003 when she was still a Harvard bankruptcy law professor, long before she became a senator. She and her daughter, Amelia Warren Tyagi, wrote an entire book about this after studying over 2,000 families who had filed for bankruptcy. And what they found was genuinely shocking. Having two incomes didn't make families more financially secure, it made them more vulnerable. It made them more likely to go bankrupt, not less. Families with two working parents were actually more likely to file for bankruptcy than single-income families.
Then that would get me to wondering, what exactly is it that you are using your money on? What are you spending your money on? Because one would think that two incomes together would make sense. You know, there's enough being pulled in from both sides. So I'm curious to see what this is about.
Let that sink in. Working twice as hard, bringing home 2 paychecks, doing everything the modern economy told you to do, and you end up more likely to lose everything. That's not a personal finance failure. That's a systemic trap, and you're probably standing right in the middle of it. Let me take you back to 1970 for a second, because understanding the history is crucial to understanding the trap. In 1970, about 43% of women participated in the workforce. The typical middle-class family had one primary breadwinner, usually the father, and one parent at home, usually the mother, managing the household. And here's what most people don't realize. That single income was enough.
Yeah, you talking about a different time, man. Yeah, back then, that was the play. The man went to work, and the mother stayed home with the kids. That's not going to fly nowadays. You know what I'm saying? Now, you are starting to see a shift in the, attitude with, a lot of people, or, I should say women, you know what I'm saying? And that they want to go back to being, stay-at-home moms and stuff like that. They don't want to really have to deal with this hustle culture like that, because it's a lot. because they've already been tasked with taking care of the kids, having to make sure that they are ready for school, they did their homework, things like that. So you compound that with them having to work a job too. Yeah, that's a lot. So a lot of women I've seen in the social media space are starting to now revert back to this, you know what I'm saying, being stay-at-home moms and stuff like that. Another thing I want to add to that also is just there being work available for men where they can make enough money to support a family. You know what I'm saying? Most of our jobs have been shipped out to other countries for the cheap labor. So it's really a earning issue for most men, why they can't really afford to pay everything by themselves. And they might talk about it in this video, but I'm gonna let them talk.
Not just barely enough, actually enough. According to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and Census records, a median single-income family in 1970 could afford a median-priced home, spending about 25% of their income on housing. They could afford to put their kids in public schools that were reasonably well-funded, regardless of neighborhood. They could afford basic health care, a car, food, and still have money left over for savings.
You know, this is perfect because my grandmother, God rest her soul, is the perfect case study for something like this, because really both my grandmothers, my father's mother worked for New York City Transit for 20 years. She started there in 71. She retired in 91. I was going on 2 years old. And she was able to afford her house in Hollis at $25,000. That's how much it cost. And she was able to afford that and have her 4 kids and her mother all live in one house. And I'm sure they had their days, but she managed to do that with her one income. All of this right here, she was able to do that. She had a car, she had health insurance and things like that, food. Now the vacation part, I mean, their idea of a vacation was going to Atlantic City or King's Dominion or something like that. That was, you know, every now and then, but she was still able to do that though. So yeah.
And the occasional family vacation. They had financial margin, they had breathing room, and critically, they had a backup plan. If something went wrong, if the primary earner got sick or lost their job, the stay-at-home parent could enter the workforce. That second potential income was an insurance policy, an emergency reserve that could be activated if needed. Now, fast forward to today. Female workforce participation is around 57% and much higher among married mothers specifically. The two-income household has become the norm, not the exception. In over 60% of married couples with children, both parents work. We've essentially activated the emergency backup plan as the default operating mode. And here's where it gets really interesting. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median household income in 2023 was about $74,000. Adjusted for inflation, that's significantly higher than the median household income in 1970. We're making more money than our parents and grandparents did. But look at what happened to costs. Median home prices in 1970, adjusted for inflation, were around $200,000 in today's money. The median home price in 2023, over $400,000. Housing costs have literally doubled relative to.
To be honest, that makes no damn sense whatsoever. And again, this is a perfect case study because the same house that my grandmother had in Hollis, Queens, New York, that neighborhood now, if you go on Trulia.com or whatever, go to Zillow and you look up houses in the Hollis, St. Albans area of Queens, there's houses out there going for over $1 million now. Nothing has changed, maybe other than the upgrades that they may have done inside the home, but it's in the same location, same plot of grass or dirt or whatever the house. Nothing has relatively changed about that area, but they want $1 million for these homes that at one time only cost about $25,000. So this is the insanity that you're having to deal with. It's like, okay, yeah, we're making more money, but we all see what comes with making more money. They just keep moving the goalpost.
Inflation. Healthcare spending per household has increased by over 600% since 1970. Childcare, which barely existed as a major expense in the single-income era because someone was home.
I was just about to say that when me and my cousins hit the scene, late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s, there was somebody in the house to watch our behinds. There was someone there to watch us, whether it be our great grandmother or one of the aunties. There was somebody in the house that could look after us. So this whole thing with childcare was not a thing for us back then. But nowadays, you know, grandma, she done checked out, and, you know, well, one of my grandmothers is gone, but it's just not the same because now the grandma and grandpa's got to work. They can't stay home and, you know, do like their grandparents and their parents could do.
Now costs the average American family over $11,000 per year per child, and that's the average. In high cost of living areas, you're looking at $20,000 to $30,000 per child annually. Education costs for college have increased over 1,200% since 1980. The fixed costs of being a middle-class family have exploded, while wages have merely crept up, and all that extra income from the second worker got absorbed.
See, what I really want people to, you know, come to grips with is that this fiat money system doesn't work. I mean, it works for who it's supposed to work for. And I'm not saying that I'm totally against it because even me, you know, I'm trying to, you know, increase my earning potential. But what essentially I'm saying is the more money you begin to make, the more expensive things become. Because as we've seen throughout history, if there's too much money available, then that means they got to increase the cost of the goods. Because if everybody can get their hands on something, then it's no longer valuable. And that's what's going on with money. Money, you know, the value of money is depleting. So
every single dollar of it. The two-income family doesn't have double the financial security of the single-income family from 1970. They have less because their fixed costs expanded to consume both incomes, and they burned their backup plan just to keep up with baseline expenses.
Now, you might be thinking, Bobby, this doesn't apply to me. We're smart with our money. We didn't let lifestyle inflation eat our second income. And look, maybe you're the exception. But let me walk you through the math of what actually happens to that second income, and I want you to be honest with yourself about whether this applies to your situation. Let's say one partner makes $70,000 and the other makes $50,000. That's $120,000 combined, which feels like a lot.
This is before taxes.
Let's focus on what happens to that $50,000 second income. First, there's taxes. Because of the way progressive tax brackets work, that second income gets taxed at a higher marginal rate than if it were the only income. The first $70,000 gets taxed at lower brackets, but that additional $50,000 comes in at the top of the stack. Depending on your state, the effective tax rate on the second income could be 30 to 35% or higher when you factor in federal income tax, state income tax, and payroll taxes. So that $50,000 immediately becomes something like $32,000 to $35,000 in actual take-home. But wait, there's more. If you have kids, you need childcare. The average cost of daycare in America is about $15,000 per year per child. Got 2 kids? That's $30,000. You haven't even left the house yet, and your $50,000 income is now worth maybe $5,000.
And then they wonder why people aren't having kids like that anymore. This is the reason. This is why people aren't having kids, because it is expensive to have a child. It is very expensive. I mean, even like right now, we're just getting through the Christmas season, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people probably didn't ball out and go crazy buying gifts because it's like, yo, it's either my rent or gifts, and nobody wants to be on the street. So, you know, we're going to have to do without the gifts. Tax season is coming. So whatever I didn't get you for Christmas, I'll just get it with my taxes.
And we're not done. 2 working parents means 2 commutes.
The average American commute costs about $5,000 per year in gas, maintenance, and vehicle depreciation. That's if you're driving. If you're paying for parking downtown, add another $2,000 to $3,000. If you need a second car that you wouldn't otherwise need, add the car payment, insurance, and registration. Call it $8,000 total for the second person's commuting costs. Your $50,000 is now negative. But let's keep going because it gets worse. 2 exhausted working parents means less time and energy for cooking, cleaning, home maintenance, and all the tasks that a stay-at-home parent might otherwise handle. Studies show that dual-income families spend significantly more on convenience services and prepared foods. They're more likely to hire house cleaners, order delivery, pay for lawn services, buy pre-made meals, and eat out more frequently because nobody has the energy to cook after a 10-hour day, including commute. These exhaustion expenses can easily add another $5,000 to $10,000 per year compared to a household where one person has time to manage domestic labor. So let's add it up. That $50,000 second income, minus $18,000 for taxes, minus $15,000 for childcare for one child, minus $8,000 for commuting costs, minus $7,000 for convenience expenses and exhaustion spending, you're at $2,000. That's not a typo. The net contribution of a $50,000 second income can realistically be as low as $2,000 per year, maybe less, maybe negative, especially if you have multiple children or live in a high cost of living area. Someone is working full-time, being away from their kids, missing family dinners, grinding through traffic, and the household is netting $2,000 for the year. That's $8 per workday. That's $1 per hour. And here's the psychological trap. Because the gross numbers look big, because you see that $120,000 combined income on your tax return, you feel like you should be doing well. You make spending decisions based on that $120,000. You buy a house based on what 2 incomes can qualify for.
You know, I also wanted to add to this when it comes to just getting a job. Most people will say you should live on the outskirts. You shouldn't live in a big metropolitan city. Here's the problem with that though. Most of the jobs and opportunities are in the big metropolitan cities. Like where I'm at, for example, I'm in Atlanta. Well, I'm just outside of Atlanta, maybe about 25, 30 minutes from the city. But that's where the jobs are. There aren't really many jobs on the outskirts for the most part. So you have to live within the limits of the city. And when you live within the limits of the city, you can expect a surge in costs. I've been here, I've been here 12 years. April 2013 is when I touched down in Atlanta, or Metro Atlanta, I will say. And I've watched prices skyrocket. My first apartment in 2017 was $925. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath right over there in Marietta or Franklin. For those that know, not too right over there near Delk Road. So, you know, that same 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment now, they probably want like $1,600 for it, because I was literally one exit away from the SunTrust Stadium. You got the Battery right there now. So it's a whole lot that's changed in that area since I lived there. And so, you know, the cost is going up. You know what I mean?
You take on car payments that 2 incomes can theoretically support. The bank looks at your combined income and says, yes, you can afford this $400,000 mortgage, and technically you can, as long as both incomes keep flowing forever, as long as...
And see, this is the thing that we have to come to grips with as human beings. You don't really have control over your life like you may think you do, because every move that you make is dictated by somebody else. You know, if the company decides to go in a different direction, then that means your income can be in jeopardy. And now you've got so much riding on this job, you know, your car, your home, your children, all of your, you know, revenge spending that you do, all of that is heavily dependent on that job. And so we make these decisions like this, getting mortgages and loans and stuff like that on the premise that we're going to have this job for the long term. And you don't get to make that decision. Somebody's going to make that decision for you. You know what I'm saying? So that's the cautionary tale with that nobody really talks about. Like, you really don't have control over this like you may think you do. You know what I'm saying? But they continue to push that illusion.
Either of you gets sick or laid off or burned out or needs to take care of an aging parent or has a
Right.
child with special needs or hits
Yep.
any of the 1,000 unexpected life events that humans encounter. This is where the trap snaps shut, and it's the part that Elizabeth Warren's research really drove home. The single-income family from 1970 had something the two-income family today doesn't have: financial flexibility. If the breadwinner lost their job, the stay-at-home parent could find work. Not ideal, but it was a backup. It was margin. It was resilience. The two-income family has already played that card. Both incomes are already fully committed to the monthly nut. There's no backup plan. There's no reserve income to activate. If either partner loses their job, gets sick, or can't work for any reason, the family doesn't just lose that income. They often can't maintain their fixed costs even temporarily because those costs were sized for two incomes. This is why Warren's research found that two-income families were more likely to file bankruptcy. It's not because they were irresponsible. It's because they had no margin for error. They were operating at 100% capacity with no reserves, like a car running with no oil in the engine. Everything works fine until it doesn't, and then everything breaks at once. A 2019 study from the Federal Reserve found that nearly 40% of American adults couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing or
That's
selling
crazy.
something.
It's insane.
40%. And many of those people are in dual-income households making solid money on paper. They're not broke because they don't earn enough. They're broke because their expenses expanded to consume every dollar of their combined earnings, and they're one unexpected transmission repair away from financial crisis. And here's what really gets me. The expenses that consumed the second income weren't luxury expenses. They weren't boats and vacations and frivolous spending, at least not primarily. They were housing and childcare and healthcare and
Necessary
education.
needs.
They were the fixed costs of participating in the middle class. Look at housing specifically, because this is where the bidding war effect becomes clear. In the single-income era, families competed for housing based on one income. When two-income families became the norm, families suddenly had twice the purchasing power for the same houses. What do you think happened to prices? They got bid up, way up. If everyone has two incomes, then two incomes become the baseline requirement. And
Right. So that basically means they moved the goalpost. Just when you thought you was doing something, and they said, we got something for that. And they moved the goalpost. So now a house that really should only cost at the most $100K, they want $300,000 to $400,000 for it. Maybe even more than that. And it's not even worth that. You know, that just be my whole thing. When you look at some of these houses, even out here in Atlanta, they said in a video I was watching that 19,000 of the homes that are in the metro Atlanta area are corporately owned by these private hedge funds and stuff like that. But these are the same houses from decades ago. Nothing has changed about them other than the renovations that they did on the inside, but it's still in the same location. So what justifies raising the cost of that house? It's just, to me, in my opinion, it's just a way to keep people out, to just keep people from being able to afford the quote unquote dream.
suddenly, you need two incomes just to afford what one income used to buy. It's like an arms race where everyone escalated and nobody won. The same thing happened with education. School districts are largely funded by property taxes, which means good schools exist in expensive neighborhoods. Parents naturally want to live in areas with good schools, so families started bidding up property prices in good school districts using their two incomes to outbid others. This created what Warren calls the bidding war for educational opportunity. The price of admission to good public schools became a $400,000 mortgage instead of a $200,000 mortgage. You're not paying tuition, but you're paying the tuition equivalent in your housing costs. And once you're locked into that mortgage, you're locked into needing both incomes forever. You can't go down. You can't go back to one income. The trap has closed.
The body scanner reveals the brutal truth about your body that your regular scale will never tell you. For weeks,
Now, you might be thinking, okay, Bobby, but what am I supposed to do? I can't just have my partner quit their job. We need both incomes to survive. And I hear you. That's exactly the trap. You need both incomes to survive the lifestyle you've built around both incomes. But here's the mindset shift that changes everything. You need to start treating the second income like it's temporary, even if it isn't. Here's what I mean. Most families do the opposite.
Basically, you
They
need to make
treat
more
both
money.
incomes as permanent and
One needs to make more
guaranteed,
money.
and they build their fixed costs accordingly. They buy the house that two incomes can afford, they lease the cars that two incomes can support, they enroll the kids in activities and schools that two incomes can pay for, and then they're stuck. They've built a life that requires two incomes to function, which means neither partner can ever stop working, even if they want to, even if life circumstances make it necessary. The alternative approach is what I call the one-income foundation. You structure your fixed costs, your non-negotiable monthly expenses, so they can be covered by one income alone. The second income then becomes entirely discretionary. Savings, investments, debt payoff, or yes, some lifestyle enhancement. But the critical difference is that you could survive without it. You'd have to cut back, sure. Life wouldn't be as comfortable, but you wouldn't lose the house. You wouldn't go bankrupt. You'd have the margin that modern dual-income families have lost.
Let me make this concrete. Say your household makes $130,000 combined, $75,000 and $55,000. Instead of taking on a mortgage that requires $100,000 or more in annual income to service, you take on a mortgage that can be comfortably covered by $60,000. Instead of having two car payments, you have one or none. You live in a neighborhood that's maybe slightly less prestigious, with schools that are good but not elite. You buy the house that one income can afford, and you bank the difference. That second income, or at least the majority of it, goes straight into building wealth. Emergency fund first, then retirement accounts, then taxable investments. Every dollar you invest is buying back optionality. It's buying the flexibility to have one partner step back if needed, to take a career risk, to handle a health crisis, to be present for aging parents, to actually have a choice.
You know, this does sound like the ideal thing to do. I think a lot of people's sentiment is that we already went through this with our great-grandparents, with the Great Depression and having to be poor and go without, only to turn around and have to do that all over again in this economy. Because when we got to the 1950s and 60s during the industrial phase and period, and there were a lot of factory jobs and stuff like that, things were promising. And so we were slowly but surely moving away from the idea of having to budget and live below your means. And now it's like, okay, we can live now. We can live a little. And what you're essentially telling the masses now is that we have to go back to that. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but, well, I guess maybe in a way I am saying, like, there's something wrong with that picture for me, because it shouldn't have to be a situation where we have to go back to living how our great grandparents had to live during the Great Depression and eating beans and stuff like that. This is America, you know? And so what are we essentially saying? It's like we're the greatest country in the world, but yet, you know, people are poor. It just doesn't make sense to me.
This requires sacrifice in the short term. It means driving past the nice houses you could technically qualify for. It means explaining to friends why you're not upgrading your lifestyle, even though you got a raise. It means resisting the social pressure to spend like a dual-income family because you're building like a single-income family. But here's the payoff. Within 5 to 10 years of this approach, something magical happens. The investments you made with that second income start generating their own income. Compounding takes over, and suddenly you actually have what you thought dual incomes would give you in the first place.
Now, this is all dependent on there being an economy where people are spending money. They tell you should invest in the S&P 500 and things like that, which is cool, but that is all contingent on there being people that are consuming, because that is the American economy. It's based on consumer goods, because we don't really make anything. I know they're trying to bring manufacturing back this way, but that's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of time. So if people aren't making the wages to afford to spend money on the iPhones and the Teslas and things like that, what good are your investments? You know what I'm saying? So it's like gambling almost. Your hopes is that in 10 years, with you investing in the S&P 500, the Magnificent Seven, that you will be making a generous amount of money off of your investments. But
Genuine financial security. You're no longer 2 job losses away from crisis. You're building wealth instead of treading water. You can make decisions based on what's best for your family rather than what's necessary to make the mortgage payment. I want to leave you with one final thought because I think it reframes this whole conversation. The 2-income trap isn't really about income. It's about flexibility. It's about margin. It's about having options. Our grandparents with 1 income had something that we've traded away, the ability to absorb a shock, to change direction, to have one partner focus on raising kids or caring for family without the whole financial structure collapsing. We traded that flexibility for bigger houses and nicer cars and the appearance of prosperity. But appearances aren't wealth, cash flow isn't security, and 2 incomes aren't better than 1 if both of them are already.
well, a lot of companies have benefited off this I guess you could say flaunting or fronting like you got it. A lot of people have come up off of people's financial negligence. So, it's like, damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Spent before they arrive. The families who thrive financially in the modern economy aren't the ones who earn the most. They're the ones who've preserved their flexibility, who've refused to let their expenses expand to consume their income, who've kept their backup plan in reserve, instead of deploying it just to keep up with the Joneses. You can earn your way out of a lot of problems, but you can't earn your way out of a trap you don't even know you're in. Now you know. The question is what you're going to do about it. If this video helped you see your finances differently, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges how you think about money. I'll see you in the next one.
All right, y'all. So that's going to wrap up this video. That was a pretty interesting take as far as, there being 1 income compared to 2 incomes. And so essentially what I gather from that is you don't really have any backup plan or like a safety net if both incomes are having to now be used to man the ship, as opposed to how it used to be where you could have one person and their 1 income and they were able to afford all of the home expenses, and one parent was home to raise the kids and make sure the house was in order. I'll say this: if you are a single man, single woman with no kids, just live by yourself. Try to increase your earning potential, however that may be. And then if you find someone that you're serious about and y'all are serious about y'all's future and y'all want to tough it, take the long way, then do that. But other than that, just live by yourself and get your money up, however that may be, as long as it's something within reason and not going to put you in jail or take your life, because it's not worth it. It's not worth doing any of that. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. I'm not going to keep rambling. Y'all let me know down in the comments what y'all think. Let's rap about it, have some table talk about it. And yeah, if you're watching this video and you have not subscribed yet, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button so that you're notified whenever I drop, and hit the like button as well. Don't forget that too. It's your boy Robbie, and I am out.